Bucs wide receiver Emeka Egbuka probably had the best NFL rookie debut this past weekend out of a lot of pretty solid NFL rookie debuts. Luke, you wrote a piece in athlonsports.com titled "Letting the Bucs Get Emeka Egbuka Was a Huge Mistake." What stuck out to you about this rookie performance?
Yeah, like I said in the article, the image I keep getting is Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad just screaming that he can't keep getting away with it. Like Jason Licht as a general manager, the first pick he ever made as general manager in 2014 was Mike Evans, wide receiver coming out of Texas A&M. And all Mike Evans has done is become the greatest offensive player in Bucs history and an easy Hall of Famer. We kind of know his resume at this point. 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and he's ninth all time in touchdown catches already, and he's still balling at 32 years old and is still one of the best receivers in the league. But when you start your tenure off with that guy as your first draft pick, I guess maybe you've got something to your process when it comes to evaluating wide receivers. And when you look at the rest of that room, Chris Godwin was a third-round pick in 2017. He became one of the most complete, prolific receivers in the league. A couple of season-ending injuries are the only things that have kept him from really being an elite receiver consistently. But he's hurt. You got Jalen McMillan, who was a third-round pick last year, who caught 7 touchdowns in the last 5 games of the season last year. So that Jason Licht just keeps nailing these wide receiver picks. And then this year, everybody is pegging them to go defense in the first round, right? They're picking 19th overall. They're loaded on offense. They bring back every starter on that offense that was top 5 in passing, top 5 in rushing last year, and their defense, the pass rush is awful. They need more big plays on the back end, so everybody's thinking edge rusher. They're thinking secondary, something. And then what does Jason Licht do with the 19th overall pick? He takes another wide receiver, and everybody's like, what are you doing? You guys have arguably the best receiver core in the NFL already. What are you doing? And then you pull back. Jason Licht knows better. Okay, he knows better than to expect a strength to remain a strength if you don't keep investing in it. And what happens? They knew Chris Godwin wasn't going to be ready for week 1. He's targeting, I think, week 5 return from last year's leg injury. But Jalen McMillan goes down with a scary neck injury in the preseason. So immediately, Emeka Egbuka goes from like wide receiver 3-4 to definitely wide receiver 2 for the first month of the season next to Evans. And so he planned ahead for that, knowing that injuries happen all the time, and he's already got one to Godwin. But it's also about the type of player the Bucs value. They have this mural on the wall in their draft room that takes up an entire wall, and it's a silhouette of a player, and then they have these traits listed on the wall that are always like core traits that they're looking for in every prospect that they draft, first round or otherwise. And the silhouette is of Levante David. Like, you can't see him, but you know that's who it is, and they talk about this all the time. So when you start to evaluate prospects that are like, okay, you remember, like we'll see prospects, Doug, you know this. Mm-hmm. We'll see a guy and be like, that's a Steeler, like we did with Derek Harmon this year. You know, we'll look at a guy and be like, that's a Raven, like we did with Malachi Starks. That we'll look at these guys and say, hey, there's a clear vision and a culture for how a team drafts. Packers come to mind as well. The Buccaneers have done that. And when you take away the they should draft for need and look at just, defense and look at who Emeka Egbuka is as a player, you're like, oh, of course the Bucs took him. Like, of course they took the guy who, could have been a high pick last year, but went back for another year along with so many other teammates at Ohio State because they had unfinished business and they couldn't go out like that, and they go and win a national championship. Of course they took a guy who's got more career receptions than any receiver in Ohio State history. Okay? If you know anything about Ohio State history at the wide receiver position, you know how impressive that record is. And so this is a guy who, regardless of position, going into this draft, I said it multiple times on athlonsports.com, this was maybe the most pro-ready player in the entire draft. A guy in terms of experience, polish, how he wins as a route runner, his versatility to be able to play outside, to be able to play inside, which again has been vital for the Bucs because Chris Godwin's versatility is missing right now. So Egbuka is playing that role where he can move any inside or outside and line up anywhere you want. So this was, again, a team that is a contending team, and they drafted a player who is ready to make an impact right away, just a polished. Everybody in that building talks about how he's already a pro, can't believe he's a rookie. The way he goes about his work, the person he is off the field, the leadership, the intangibles that he brings to the table. And he's just a guy who gets open. So what did we see on Sunday? All that to say, what we saw on Sunday was everybody, the Falcons trying to take away Mike Evans, which everybody tries to do and usually fails. He still had 5 for 51 on Sunday. But Egbuka was the guy who got the one-on-one matchups, and what does he do? He catches a 30-yard touchdown in the first half to give them the lead for the first time, and then he catches a 25-yard touchdown with a minute left to go to put them ahead for good. And just the trust that he's already built up with Baker Mayfield. If you just play this backwards and look at every step of the way where we thought, why would the Bucs take a wide receiver, or why is Emeka Egbuka really worth a top 20 pick? You'll find plenty of literature that tells you Emeka Egbuka, he's good, he's okay, but he's not going to be a superstar wide receiver. He's not elite. He doesn't have elite speed. He's not super big. He's probably going to be a pretty decent number 2. I don't know, man. If we play out what we saw on Sunday, I think it's going to look really silly moving forward, and I think that's why I wrote that. It's a big mistake to let an offense that was already so dynamic. Think about what this offense is going to look like the second half of the season when Chris Godwin gets back healthy, when Jalen McMillan comes back, whenever that happens. Emeka Egbuka on the field with any combination of those 2, 3, 4 guys, Baker Mayfield's just going to have a field day. And again, allowing that guy to get to 19 now feels like a steal, when before people were like, oh, that's a little early, and I didn't think he would go there. But it just makes perfect sense when you look back at it in retrospect, and it's going to make a dangerous offense even more dangerous, and I think going to lead to a chance to win a 5th straight NFC South title.
Well, I remember doing the mock draft madness, a 2-parter on BPA that you and I did, and I had him going to the Lions because I could see, he's a Buccaneer, but he's also a Lion, and both of his touchdowns were on in-breaking routes. Dig balls, go figure. Who caught the most dig balls last year? Who threw the most dig passes last year? I believe it was Jared Goff. So I could see him going there. And you got to ask yourself, they lost in the playoffs, 23-20 to the Commanders? If Godwin's in that game, you look at Godwin's career in the playoffs, how far did they go? So Egbuka is in one way a complementary, not replacement, but now you have that guy who understands the entire offense right off the bat, even if Godwin isn't there. They didn't really have that without him. And those guys are usually underrated and undersold, and they become so important. And the pre-draft analysis with Egbuka, and I told you this earlier today, reminded me a lot of when Justin Jefferson came out of LSU, and he played mostly in the slot. So people thought, all he is a slot receiver. And Justin Jefferson went 22nd in his draft. Egbuka went 19th. Well, Egbuka's explosive plays were all, they were tight splits, but they were all on the outside. I believe he had 2/3 of his snaps were on the outside. So just because a guy played slot in college, when you consider who else Ohio State has at receiver, you would understand it. But when he comes to this particular situation, then you look at the preseason, you look at, what people are saying about him. I'm not saying he's going to be Justin Jefferson, but the pre-draft analysis reminded me a lot of what I heard about Jefferson. Like, well, if he played the slot in college, that's all he can do. And I think anytime you're analyzing a draft prospect and you base your entire assessment on his NFL potential on what he did in college, you tell me. That's not the way I do it.
And again, look, Jason Licht, the general manager in Tampa, is not a prisoner of the moment. And if you look at what's going to happen in a couple of years, Mike Evans is 32 years old. I know he can't play forever, even though it sure looks like he can at this point. Chris Godwin's going to turn 30 next offseason. Now you have a seamless transition between, obviously, you're never going to find another Mike Evans. Those guys are super, super rare. Yeah. But you're going to have this 1-2 transition between Evans and Godwin as your 2 guys, to maybe Egbuka and McMillan as your 2 guys, and not have to worry about what's going to happen with that passing game. Baker Mayfield's looking at his depth chart, looking at the future, and be like, hey, I'm going to be 37 years old before I have to worry about the wide receiver position. This is just incredible. And again, team that brought back the entire offensive line. I know they're banged up right now, but man, Egbuka is just one of those picks where when it happened, almost everybody was like, wait, what? That is not what we had. The last 4 months, none of us had this happening. And then when you look back in retrospect, you'll be like, it makes so much sense. Why didn't we have this happening? And again, it's all playing out on the field like we saw on Sunday. It's going to be a big problem for the NFC South and the rest of the NFC for a long time.
Well, and one thing Baker said in the preseason, even before the game started with the new offensive structure, is they want to throw the ball deep more. And a guy like Egbuka, everyone thinks, oh, well, he's one of those savvy slot receivers. Well, first part wrong. Second part wrong is he's not really a deep receiver. Well, he caught 6 passes on 11 targets of 20 or more air yards for Ohio State last year, 193 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he had 2 explosive plays in his first NFL game. And on one of them beat Xavier Watts, the Falcons safety, who I have to mention because we both loved him, didn't know why he went to the third round, and he nearly had 2 picks. But overall, I think Egbuka is one of those receivers who he's a high floor, high ceiling guy disguised as a low ceiling guy, and a lot of people made a mistake with that. So going back to the title of your article, and like we always say, Howie Roseman got away with it again. I think Jason Licht got away with a big one here.
Well, and look at the way that game-winning touchdown was drawn up too, Doug. You talk about the complementary. If they want to throw the football deep, how do you create that? Because it's usually Evans that's the field-stretching guy, right? Even at his size, he's the big play guy, because even if you hang with him speed-wise, he's going to outmuscle you for the ball at the point of attack when the ball gets there. But the way they drew that play up, Evans had caught a couple of digs, a couple of in-breaking routes over the middle, one on that drive, but a couple earlier in the game. So how do they draw that up? It's a high-low concept where Evans is coming from the opposite side of the field. He draws Jesse Bates up from the deep third to create that leverage that Egbuka now gets to just run to the post and run away from Mike Hughes, I believe it was the corner on that side of the field. But you go to Evans once, you go to Evans twice, and eventually Bates sneaks down. He's aggressive. He wants to make a play that's going to end the game. He comes down, crashes on Evans on the dig route. Baker gives him the little shoulder like he's going to go there, comes up over the top, and he's got one-on-one with a guy that, like you said, didn't get enough credit for his field stretching ability. Definitely could do it there. They've clearly, and again, they're just scratching the surface. That was Josh Grizzard's first game calling plays as the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. He's only going to get more comfortable and better from here. And I think as Egbuka gets more comfortable in the playbook, it's only going to unlock more. And again, look out for this team post bye week. They've got a mid-season bye week in week 9 when all 4 of those receivers are healthy on the field at once. And again, by the way, you're going to get Tristan Wirfs back as your all-pro tackle on the left side. Again, this is a dangerous offense. It already was. If the defense can figure it out and stay healthy, I don't know that there's anybody in the NFC. You could say the Eagles, but this same Bucs team, the Eagles lost 1 game last year by more than 3 points, and it's when the Bucs beat them by 3 scores earlier in the season. And so I don't think anybody's going to want to see this Tampa Bay team in the playoffs when they get healthy, and Egbuka is going to be a huge part of that.
Well, you're talking about the first touchdown. The second touchdown was just as interesting. And, you're talking about how Grizzard can sort of unleash the entire palette. This was empty formation, 3x2, 3 to the front side. So it was a front side, 3-level stretch. Egbuka is the one on the outside running the deep post, and Evans is the one running the dig from outside slot, and he's the one who clears everything out for Egbuka. Think about that. Mike Evans is clearing things out so that Egbuka has a one-on-one with Bates, who this time follows the deep post. It's a remarkable statement.
Good luck, everybody.
It's going to be fun offense to watch anyway. And I've been on Team Baker since the beginning, so I enjoy watching the Buccaneers. That's going to be real fun.
Can Emeka Egbuka and the Bucs win the Super Bowl? Let us know in the comments below, and like and subscribe for more NFL content.